Chapter 3. Claire DiStefano was recently named the director of the Centers for Disease Control. Stacked on her desk were literally hundreds of files, stacks of letters and DVDs sent to her from practically every governmental agency with an initial, and even a few she herself had never heard of. Martin Craig, her newly appointed assistant, introduced himself the day before. The two had dinner in Atlanta at a coffee shop as Martin explained to her what she had just gotten herself into. It wasn't an easy job, and was one of the most magnified positions.
"All eyes are on you, Claire," said Martin.
"Have a seat. What's up?" said Claire.
"I got a call this morning from Savannah. Seems to be there are a few patients there that are almost comatose, but with no physical issues or anything that would lead anyone to believe there's anything wrong with them," replied Martin.
"A poison of some kind?" Claire replied.
"Nope. They have tested these people for everything, and there's just nothing there. No abnormalities, no drugs in their systems. Some just collapsed in the middle of watching their kids playing baseball at the park. One guy just didn't wake up. At least not consciously, though. His eyes were wide open. Not really sure what is the issue, but they are up to 11 people in Savannah, all at the same hospital. And we've got a few specialists on the way to see what's happening, but so far they just appear to be in a zombie-like state. Vitals are all normal, just not moving, not blinking, nothing," he said.
Claire just sat there and looked at her desk. "Do I have a file on this?" she asked Martin.
"No, just bringing this into you now.
What's puzzling to me is this guy who has an acute case of multiple sclerosis. That's the diagnosis.
He is completely unable to talk, move, walk, and everyone we've had look at him says the condition is of someone who had the condition for 10 years or more," said Martin.
Claire stood up and walked over to her coffee machine.
"Do you want a cup?" she asked.
"No thanks, I'm wired enough," he replied. Claire walked back over to her chair and sat down, opening the file handed to her by Martin. She flipped through the various pages.
"Okay, well, the guy has MS, appears to have had it for 10 years. That all sounds pretty normal to the condition for someone who's had it for this long. I don't see anything out of the ordinary in this. Not sure why it's even in this file," Claire replied. "Well, Claire, the problem is this particular case doesn't make any sense at all. He hasn't had this condition for 10 years, despite doctors that have reviewed the case," Martin replied.
"MS affects different people in different ways. It can be a couple of years or decades before it really has an impact on the patient," said Claire.
"I'm not seeing the odd connection here."
Martin opened up his briefcase and pulled out a photo of the man Jacob Santoro, age 45, in the condition he was currently in. Claire looked at the photo and leaned back in her chair. "Oh, poor bastard," she said as she looked at the mangled physical appearance.
"That's a photo from this morning. We took it at the Memorial Hospital when we were looking at other patients," said Martin.
"Okay, I'm understanding. He's a 45-year-old male with MS. Clearly he's suffered from it for quite some time," said Claire. Martin again reached into his bag, this time pulling out the sports section of the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. He handed it to Claire.
"This is the sports section. Take a look at this photo," said Martin.
The headline read, "Jacob Santoro wins golf championship for third straight year."
"This is the same guy?"
said Claire.
"Take a look at the date on that newspaper," said Martin.
It was dated the day before.
"Wait, this can't be right. This is the same guy? And yesterday he won a golf tournament?" said Claire.
Martin didn't know quite what to say and just nodded.
"This can't be real," said Claire.
Martin stood up and walked toward the coffee machine.
"Perhaps I'll have a cup after all," he said.
Claire stood up and walked over to Martin.
"Is this for real? This guy in this photo was winning a golf championship in Atlanta just yesterday?" said Claire. "Well, it was an amateur contest, but yeah, that's him. Same guy. The guy who won that tournament the very next day suddenly has MS like he caught a flu," said Martin.
Claire walked over to her desk and got on the phone.
"It's time we took a trip to Savannah. Let's see what the hell is going on there. I want a quarantine team on standby as well," said Claire. "Of course, Claire. I'm on it, and we can leave whenever you're ready," said Martin.
Martin began to walk out of the office.
"Martin, I'm ready to go right now. We're leaving now."
Martin nodded and began preparations for the trip to Savannah.